sure they wait through Mr. McElhaney's 8 items. So we thought we'd put them first out of respect for them. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Hurley, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Lozanik. He can introduce the coach and the individuals they brought with them. On the agenda, I hyperlinked the presentation that they provided to me. So if you have your computer and you want to view it, you can. If not, it is hyperlinked via the agenda.
I did go over that presentation.
Okay.
How do they want to proceed?
I'll turn it over to Mr. Lozanik and coach. They can decide.
And you're going to turn it over to them.
I'm going to turn it over
and she's going to turn it over to the last girl in the back corner.
lacrosse people about 2 weeks ago. The lacrosse organization met with myself, Mr. McElhaney, and Mr. Cronauer about funding, and we had a good productive meeting, and this is the next step. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Watson.
Hi, thank you so much. I move up or stay here?
Actually, can you move up and use the microphone so people can hear you?
Sure. Sorry, we're getting it so that the actual presentation as opposed to the PDF version of it
The
is
PDF
up
is
so that
pretty
you'll
good.
be able to see. All right.
You need one more hand.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not used to talking into a microphone. I'm also used to talking to students as opposed to other adults. So, but I wanted to thank the committee for hosting us. I'm here representing Indiana Area Lacrosse. We have Tracy Buderbaugh, who is one of the parents from our lacrosse club. We have Mary Wood, who's our treasurer. And then we have 2 of our lacrosse players. One of them happens to be my daughter, and the other one's Anna Buderbaugh, who is our high school goalie. And I come here today, let me just preface this by saying I am not a person who is very comfortable asking people for money. My husband and I direct the In First Bank Veterans Marathon here in town. We actually also direct a nonprofit that is associated with that. And when it comes to asking for funds, I always defer to him. But in this case, I've been involved with the Indiana Area Lacrosse Club for since my daughter was in 3rd grade. She's an incoming sophomore right now. Well, now she is a sophomore since they started today. So she's a full-fledged sophomore. But the reason I'm here today is because this is something that is very meaningful to me and my family. It's very meaningful to approximately 75 to 100 families here in the Indiana School District. And it's certainly something that's very meaningful to our kids who have been playing lacrosse in some cases, like my daughter, since they were in elementary school. So what I come here today is to ask the committee to consider and hopefully agree that this is something worth investing in more by the district. So I've divided the proposal, and I know I sent it to you ahead of time, but I did it in such a way so that we can talk about the current state of lacrosse and why we think that full funding by the district at this time is both the right thing to do and necessary to make lacrosse continue to be a viable activity in the district. So why should ISD fully fund the girls and boys lacrosse programs? And if you have any questions at any time, feel free to interrupt. Number 1 on this is about equity and to provide equitable access for all of our students to participate in high school lacrosse, regardless of their ability to pay. And I'll talk to you about the difference between how lacrosse is funded and what the expectations are for our families versus other sports and activities in the district, because there is quite a difference. Number 2, I know that this proposal, maybe not quite like this, but I know this idea has been brought before the board before. It's been a while. And I know that 10 years ago when the boys team was first founded, the district did agree to make lacrosse a school sport. And maybe 10 years ago, lacrosse was kind of a niche sport. It was something that had just arrived here in Western and Central Pennsylvania. But in the past 10 years, lacrosse has grown exponentially. And I'll show you the data on the Pii and the WPIAL to show just how much lacrosse has grown over time. And it's certainly grown here in the Indiana School District in our community. And number three, it's just an investment. I think a good investment for the district to make in our student athletes, in our families, and in potential families who might move into the Indiana School District. Because again, this is a sport that I think attracts families. And we are the only district in the county that offers lacrosse. But again, we're not alone in terms of offering lacrosse in Western Pennsylvania. So current funding, the way things stand right now, the vast majority of the funding and support for high school lacrosse comes through the Indiana Lacrosse Club. And I cannot say enough. I joined the lacrosse board about 8 or 9 years ago, like I said, when my daughter Addie first started. I got off the lacrosse board because for many years I coached youth lacrosse, and I continue to be involved in coaching lacrosse, and I'm a volunteer coach for the high school. I direct camps, and I've taken zero. And this is not any kind of financial thing for any of us, because most of us have done this for years for absolutely nothing, in a way as it should be. But when it comes to the high school program, one of the things that I think, we need to recognize is how much the club has to pay to cover the costs of lacrosse. And so that's everything. You can see second there for coaching. So all the coaches' salaries, their certifications, which have to be done through U.S. Lacrosse. Our insurance for lacrosse comes through U.S. Lacrosse. And so all of our coaches have to be members, as do all of our players, which is not something that would be the case if we were a fully funded school sport. We are a school sport, but again, not fully funded, just to make that clear. All of our equipment, from the balls to the nets, to the certified goalie equipment, our helmets, our heart guards, again, our insurance through U.S. Lacrosse, all of the medical coverage for our games, including the EMTs, payment for our officials, and transportation costs. This is the one area where the district does provide some funding. The district has provided $4,000 a year, $2,000 to the girls team, $2,000 to the boys team in the form of a discount off of our transportation costs. But that does not adequately even cover the transportation costs and the busing costs for our away travel. So not only do we pay for at least half of those transportation costs, but all of the other things that go along with having this program. So as a result, what this means for our families is that lacrosse players pay $250. And really, this is kind of bare bones. I can't say enough about Mary Wood back here. She is our treasurer. And since she's come aboard, she keeps us afloat. There were years where, our budget and, what we had remaining at the end of the year, we were really hoping that we could pull it off for another year. She has made lacrosse viable for us, but she's done it at, doing extraordinary work, with the money that we're able to bring in. So our high school players pay $250 just to register to play lacrosse. If they do not pay that $250, there is no way for them to play. Again, our insurance comes from U.S. Lacrosse, and so they must be registered with the club and with U.S. Lacrosse. So a kid, and I had this happen when we started the season last year, shows up at the field and says, "That sport looks so cool, I'd like to try." They can't even try it without paying the registration because, again, the insurance has to be, we have to have that coverage for liability. So $250 for registration. $35 is the additional cost for the U.S. Lacrosse membership, and we also pay for our own uniforms. So that is a cost, and our girls can tell you, I've tried to pare that cost down as low as I possibly can. We don't have fancy uniforms. And in fact, Anna, as our goalie, actually wears a uniform that was passed down from one of the other lacrosse players' brother, who happened to be a small kid playing for the boys, because our goalie has to wear something different than what the players do. So those are the kinds of things that we're talking about in terms of doing what we need to do just to make it viable. We use hand-me-down uniforms. We have players donate them back, but those players have paid for those uniforms. They're not owned by the club, and they're not owned by the school district. So when it's all said and done, to play high school lacrosse in the Indiana School District, the average cost to a family is roughly $400 to $500 per player. And that does not include the cost for, the kinds of equipment that we would expect families to purchase, like the stick and the goggles and maybe the pads for the boys, which would still be costs that maybe the families would incur, even if it was a fully funded school sport. So on the next slide, we kind of compare that, the current situation. When you compare that with other sports and activities here that are offered by the district, students pay at most $20 through pay to play. $20 versus $400 or $500. And the district recognizes in providing exemptions to students and families who get free or reduced lunch, that even that is not necessarily a viable cost for them. So those exemptions exist. We can't do that as a club. Trust me, I know Mary is a miracle worker, and she'll never, boast about how many families she's worked with and what kind of deals we've tried to make with families. But in meeting all of those costs, we can't do that for everyone. And so to some degree, lacrosse becomes one of those you can play if you can pay. And that's just not what we want it to be about at this point. So I did a little research, and out of roughly $310,000 budgeted for IASD athletics, and I was going by what was posted on the district website under the Title IX disclosure. Out of $310,000, $4,000 went to lacrosse. At the same time, lacrosse was the second highest in terms of participation as far as boys sports were concerned. And again, this is 2017, 2018. And while we have seen declines in numbers for some sports, our numbers have actually remained steady, if not grown, over the past couple years, even in spite of COVID. And on the girls' side, it was the fifth highest. And again, that's according to the district website. There is also no other sport at IASD that is not fully funded by the school that is considered to be a school sport.
Can you back up just a minute?
Sure.
The 310, is that what we pay the coaches? Is that where the number comes from?
That came out of like the coaches and just kind of the general information that was posted on that disclosure. I mean, I was just doing some.
Okay, but that doesn't include the busing costs and the field maintenance costs.
I don't know, Jared, can you tell me? I'm not sure what is all included on that
It
disclosure.
would include coaches, benefits for coaches, supplies, travel. It wouldn't include anything for like the athletic office, anything like that. If there are specific like rental fees that, let's say baseball is one where we rent, a field for that cost is tied directly to that sport. It wouldn't include anything that, both the district and the sport uses, like turf field, costs related to those type of things. It does not include that.
But this includes all the salaries. It just, the 310 just seems like an extremely low number
It's gotta be.
for all sports.
And that may be the case. Like I said, I went from the disclosure.
11 football coaches at 33,000 more.
I thought that the whole athletic budget costs were $750,000 to $1 million.
Let me be clear. I'm not arguing with your number.
No, I
I
understand.
just want to make sure what our basis is here.
Right.
Because that's a
And then 310 is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, you just probably pulled it off the senior highs. It doesn't include junior high costs.
That's correct, because
It
we don't
doesn't
have a junior
include
high
A lot of the
program.
other athletic costs, like I said, is the director, the office secretary, all that type of stuff is not included in the report that she pulled off there. So our typical athletic budget as a district is around 750, somewhere around that. So that's
Okay.
just
Our
part of-
number doesn't change though. Our $4,000
No, I understand that. Okay.
is what it is, yeah.
You're $4,000 of a $750,000 number, which is a little different percentage. than-
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you also backtrack and
Sure.
how many girls do you have involved? I'm sorry. Let me ask more specifically. You
Sure,
have a senior high program, and then you have club sports in the lower age groups.
we do.
Do you
So,
have a breakdown of what those numbers look like?
yeah, our numbers right now, I think Mary, maybe you can help me out a little bit. We had 27 girls this past year And so that made up a varsity and a JV program, and our boys were at 40. And then our previous numbers over the past couple of years fluctuated anywhere between, I think on the low end girls, we were at about 25, 26. Senior high wise. And then on the high end, we've had as high as 40, and the boys have had as high as 46.
Are you still taking players from outside the district?
We do. I don't know how that works. Yeah, I don't think that works in the high
So the
youth. We do.
Yeah, the youth program.
Yes.
I understand that, but now at the senior high level, it's all Indiana high. It's all Indiana school
Correct.
district kids.
We welcome kids to come from outside the district in the youth program. Unfortunately, many of them then kind of get stymied once they get to 9th grade because the nearby schools don't have lacrosse.
When you started this, we allowed people to come from outside the district in order to get the team started. So I wanted to see if that was true.
It's still true at the youth level. We have.
Yeah, and that would be like the soccer people. Okay, I can sign up for West Penn soccer or anywhere I am. But when I come to the high school, I'm have to play in the high school team.
Correct.
How many kids do you put on the field at a time?
11.
It's like a football team. 11.
Correct. So you have 10 field players plus a goalie.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
And at our youth level, we field U10, U12, and U14 on both the boys and girls side. And we've been successful in fielding teams. Yes.
So 20 kids a team?
Oh, in some cases more than that. Just to kind of put that in perspective, the year that my daughter and Anna were in 7th grade, we had 24 7th graders, girls.
So safe to say 20 to 30 kids per team per age group?
Correct. And it varies from year to year.
But how many of those youth players are from outside the district?
Oh, less than maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, I would say 5 at top.
Okay.
Five total or 5 per age group?
5 total.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we don't get too many. We certainly don't deter them from playing. That's for sure. We're welcome to have them.
I was involved in starting the girls up with Western PA. We had 10-year-olds and 16-year-olds playing on the team one year. So we had little tiny 10-year-olds guarding 16-year-old kids from.
Yeah, we kind of frown upon that in lacrosse,
No,
especially
well,
the
that was-
boys. They kind of go around hacking each other. That can
was
get a
only
little
1 year.
wild.
That was only 1 year. So fortunately, but that's what it took. You know, we had a team get started, and then we could break it down into 3 age groups. We had enough kids to show that we could actually field games.
And we've had an excellent feeder program at the youth level. I mean, I was involved in the youth program from when Addie was in 3rd grade all the way through 8th grade. And as a manager, as a member of the board, and also as a coach. And the feeder program is just wonderful. And that's kind of part of the point too, is this club. We want to be that feeder program. We want to be the booster program, just like we see in other sports. But so much, a disproportionate amount of our funding has to go to support the high school that we can't even do everything with our youth program that we would like to, because that high school program, I mean, that's our marquee program. Why would we bring kids up from 3rd through 8th grade and have them get to high school and be like, you're done? And so I think we could do so much more for our kids if we didn't have the financial burden of also supporting the high school program.
Are you saying the girls, U10, U12, U14, the girls and the boys teams being equal in number of participants, or the girls still below the guys? Or
I think it kind of varies from year to year, but I think they're pretty steady. I mean, they're pretty comparable.
Okay, at that level, and when we get to the high school, the girls drop out some.
Yeah, a little bit. And again, I think that just like so many other sports, and especially these days, I know like we're looking to try to field our junior high soccer team. Who would have thought that we would have trouble fielding a junior high soccer team? And it might be just a fluke. I mean, I coached cross country for years, and on a great year, I had 40 kids on the junior high team. And on a not so great year, I had 19. And sometimes there was no rhyme or reason as to why I would have 40 versus 19. I wasn't doing anything different over 20 years, but that's just the way it kind of falls.
I heard it was because the coach was mean.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, I'm sure there are lots of people who could come in and testify about the coaching at cross country.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Please.
I feel like I should know this, but I don't. What season
That was
Where do they
good.
play?
We play in the spring.
Okay.
And if you just give me a minute,
Both boys and girls?
that's correct. That's correct. Here's kind of a breakdown on the next slide if you are looking for more specifics as far as, if we were to be budgeting this for the high school. Obviously, some of these fees would be different because, say, for example, with uniforms, I'm sure Greg can get a better deal than I can, though I have a pretty good relationship with.
I bet you're pretty good at it. You've been running this thing $250 a kid.
But so coaching, right now our coaches are paid, that's $9,000 is our budget total. That's the boys and the girls program. So 4,500.
That's for 18.
No, well, we don't pay the youth coaches. This is just, these financials only reflect the high school.
How would that work into a contract, union contract?
It would have to be negotiated in, and when we do that, we be fair between sports. You will kind of factor in the amount of time, the amount of games, those type of things, and kind of compare it to what other coaches are paid.
Right now, it's about $6,200 is about the average salary for spring coaches. That I would compare that to something like tennis. Tennis is $6,200 and it's about $2,400, something like that for an assistant coach. So I would put that on par with something like that, I guess.
Softball and baseball, those
They're a little higher.
78 higher, 78, I think, 5.
We could go higher for sure, but I went with what I would consider to be kind of the lowest one. And so you're probably looking at about $8,600 in coaching salaries on each side.
Yeah, so 16,000.
Mhm.
18,000. How many games do you play?
We play about 16. And last year we played a few extra.
Is that what the Whitfield plays?
Yes.
The max is 18. It's
So,
18 or
yeah.
20.
Yeah, I think softball is 18,
Softball is 20.
20 with two
I
exhibitions.
work with,
Yeah, with two
20
exhibitions.
and 2 scrimmages.
Yeah.
With lacrosse, we don't really schedule. I don't schedule, I'm not as free with the schedule because they have to pay the transportation costs. So I get with the coaches each year, we sit down, talk about how many games, and they usually go to you guys, right? To give me an idea of
How far do you have to go to find games?
Most of the games were like all of our other sports. We play out of Pittsburgh, so our district.
like,
Well, football.
but I mean, yeah, Mars,
How about like compared to softball because of Wilson and everything?
it would be more transportation
Okay.
because of
So
the
it's,
schools around us.
So a 2-hour ride, a 2.5 hour.
An hour and a
I wouldn't, yeah, hour and a half. So we play in our, we're in section 1A in the Whippeal. We're double A. And so there are 11 teams in our section. So we played each of the teams in our section one time. We had 2 preseason games, and then we had a couple of out-of-conference games. We played up against some AAA teams, which is what we need to do. We made it to the semifinals on the girls' side for the Whippeal this past year. Literally 2 goals away from making it to the finals. No, 1 goal away, actually. We lost to Blackhawk, who's a very well-established team. Our boys made it to the second round of the Whippeals. So, when you're looking at, again, the viability and whether we can compete, we can compete.
We're paying $4,000 of transportation.
Correct.
What's the rest of that bill?
Transportation, about $7,500. And then, of course, if we're more successful,
Is that 7,500 plus 4,000 or is that 7,500?
that would not include the 4,000. So about 3,500 we pay on top of the
Okay, so
Right.
7,500 would cover
boys and girls.
boys and girls transportation currently.
Correct. Until we make it to playoffs, and then we have to pay more.
Yeah, life stuff. Make it the playoffs.
Yes. So yeah, the breakdown is up there as far as coaches, referees, about $5,825. The varsity games require 3 referees. JV games require 2 referees. EMTs are required at all of our home contests. We pay for those EMTs. That was $1,200 this past year.
Is that 18 varsity and 18 JV?
This is combined.
Okay, so we're
yeah.
playing 36 games.
Yes, now it's like a basketball game where the JV game's first, varsity game's second. Yeah.
So the third referee will stay. So you have two referees that would ref the JV game, and then we pay a little extra to the
JV's
ones that
first
stay.
versus-
Usually the JV's first. There are times where
Yeah, we
the
flip.
varsity is flipped. It's usually because some schools don't have the volume of players.
Mhm.
So a lot of kids go both ways. So those schools will often request to play the varsity game first with the JV game afterwards, just because of injury factor or even condition.
Yeah, and these games have been played in the evening, like soccer.
Yes, we play in the evening. We play occasional Saturday mornings, but mostly in the evening.
May I go back to the $9,000? Does that $9,000 for coaching costs, are you guys paying all the payroll taxes? And are you doing payroll deductions? Like,
Mary, what is the form that we sent?
Well, they're contractors and we give them a 1099.
so they don't get, okay.
And then that's, that 4,500, is divided between a head varsity coach and then, 3 assistant coaches. So, they're
Three,
right, but-
2,500.
3 assistant coaches?
Well, when somebody is willing to do it for nothing, you get 3 assistant coaches. So, for example, our head coach, Mike Weaver, his salary was $2,500. My husband was one of our assistant coaches. He made $1,000, and then we had another young lady who coached for $1,000, and I managed the team and served as a volunteer coach for. And that's pretty typical. On the boys' side, it's pretty much the same. So 2,500, 1,000, and 1,000 is what the boys' coaches were paid as well. We used to pay more from the club, frankly, but we can't. And people still come back because we love the sport. We really do. Anybody else have any questions? Again, the breakdown of those fees of what we pay. Equipment is about $750. There are some recertifications every year. Goalie chest protectors. Goalies have to have a special chest protector called a heart guard. The helmets for the goalies have to be reconditioned or recertified, every year. We do pay huddle, which is something I believe the district would be able to kind of take over. And that is our way of getting information out, all of our statistics. I mean, it's just now everything is online, and they want to see how many goals these kids have scored and obviously what our record is. And so all of that goes through huddle.
Is that something that you guys do?
That's something depending on the sport. For example, basketball, the district, huddle is mandatory for our 2 varsity basketball teams because it saves scouting and traveling. So the district picks up the $400 to $450 per team subscription, the basic subscription to huddle. Now there's a secondary subscription for basketball, which is I think is what Ms. Locker is talking about. It's $800 and some dollars. That's the statistical package. I upload the game. They send me back my stats, so we don't have kids in the stands anymore.
Oh, we do our own stats.
That's what goes out. And that's another $800 a team. So I'm actually trying to work with Huddle with everything that we pay right now as a district with all of the sports. They've got a package that for another, the football boosters put in X amount, the lacrosse puts in X amount, the basketball, the school. If we could all get together and pull that money together and add about I'm going to say only about $1,500 more, we can get Huddle and Huddle Assist for all of our sports. Plus get 2 cameras, one mounted at the stadium and one mounted at the gym. That'll come on automatically when the games are played. So I'm kind of doing some
That sounds amazing.
backdoor, but we're close.
Yeah.
We're
We
13.
don't do that.
Which field do you use?
We use the turf field in the stadium. So we don't pay for that, again, because it is a school sport.
What lines do you use?
Pardon
Do
me?
you use the football
Blue.
line?
No.
Blue
Which are those?
on the stadium, the blue lines on the turf.
That's like what the soccer uses?
Soccer uses gold.
Oh my
Yeah, actually, the girls the girls and
Football
boys have
uses
slightly
white.
different ones. Yeah, it is. It's a little crazy.
Please. Very good. Keep going. It just drives me crazy.
So yeah, like
Looks like
just to
something-
kind of compare for something like Huddle, you know, we don't have a game manager. So all of those kind of support services that Mr. Lozanik is talking about, from the filming to putting the statistics. I know we don't have the enhanced Huddle because my husband sits there and does the statistics and puts them into Huddle. We use our iPad to film our games, and somebody sits up in the booth and volunteers to do that. We don't have game managers even for security, for example. We did for one game. We were in the championship, the girls, for our section. We perceived that there might be some issues. This was the spring; kids could finally get out, and we did have a security guard for that. But other than that, to be honest with you, I was our security, and that's because out of whatever works. But my husband is, you know, he's the director of Veterans Affairs. He doesn't work for the district. Our head coach does not, you know, he coaches other sports, but he doesn't work for the district. I'm at least a teacher in the district. And so the perception, at least, is that I have some kind of authority, even though I wasn't there on an official capacity. But frankly,
yeah.
I was security. If there was ever an issue with students, and there was, even the day that we had the security guard, I went over and took care of it. And on the boys' side, the situation would be the same thing. Our one head coach doesn't work for the district, and the assistant, but Jeff Duffy does what I do. He's a volunteer assistant. And if there's any kind of issue with crowd control, Jeff Duffy goes and does it because students and parents recognize that he's affiliated with the district. But we're just kind of playing on that. It's not, we don't have that official role.
You have money in there for EMT. Not all the sports have an EMT.
We have to. Through our insurance, we have to provide an EMT.
I've got no reason to say they don't.
No, I understand that, but
Football.
football is the only other sport that has that.
Well, actually, we could have a trainer, but what we were able to schedule and board and everything like that, that's why we went with an EA.
But if the district provided a trainer, then you could negate the EMT.
Yes.
And we do have a trainer.
We do. Process not part of the contract that the trainer has.
I understand. It'll cost us more money. But I was surprised to see the EMT there, because soccer doesn't have one, and none of the ball sports do. I don't think there's one there for track, is there? We got 600 kids there for track and no EMT.
Just our trainer.
Just a trainer. He's very busy.
She, and to her credit, she does come and supports lacrosse. But even with her being present there, because we aren't part of her contract, we still have to have the EMT. She comes of her own volition, and she's wonderful. She absolutely is. She's wonderful. So when it's all said and done, the financials, the approximate, just to kind of round it off, is about $22,500 that our club has to come up with each year just to field a team, or to field these two teams, the boys and the girls teams. And frankly, if the club does not raise those funds, then there is no high school program as it stands right now. We would like to continue to operate the lacrosse club as a boosters organization and support lacrosse from the youth program, and in any way that we can support the high school program. We just don't want the burden, and it's not a burden so much as it is just the constant worrying, are we going to be able to raise enough money to have this program continue from year to year? So we'd like to be in the same kind of financial and position as these other boosters organizations, where we can support our sport and not be our sports, almost sole supporter. So longevity, success, and growth of lacrosse. Again, just a quick little history. Boys lacrosse has played in the WPIAL since 2010. Our girls lacrosse team has been in the WPIAL since 2014. As I mentioned, we had very successful seasons. Our girls and boys have made the playoffs in multiple seasons, including last season was the most successful season, I think, for both teams, making it to the second round for the boys and to the semifinals for the girls. Both programs have produced athletes that have gone on to play in college. I can tell tell you that there are currently 6 former Indiana School District lacrosse players who are playing college lacrosse right now, who are on college lacrosse teams, including 2 from last year's graduating class. We talked about the robust youth program. We feel that multiple age levels that serve as a very important feeder program for the high school. I think our program is very well respected in the community. As I said, currently we're somewhere between 75 and 100 different families in the community that have some kind of connection to lacrosse at some level along the way. Again, just to show just how much lacrosse has grown, if you're not familiar with the sport right now, there are 232 schools in the Pii that offer boys lacrosse and 209 that offer girls. The new teams are added every year, especially in central and western Pennsylvania. This has long been an established sport on the eastern side of the state. It's still kind of dominant on the eastern side of the state, but the West is catching up. The Mars boys lacrosse team is the first Western Pennsylvania team to make it to the state championship last year. They lost, but they made it to the state championship.
That's hard to do.
It's hard to do when you're playing against Philly, yes.
On any sport.
Mm.
So when we make it into the final rounds of the state championship, we have a phenomenal team. And we've done that a couple times, and winning it is just a miracle.
So as far as the WPIAL right now, there are 37 schools that offer boys lacrosse. There are 2 divisions. There's AA and AAA. Each one of the sections, both AA and AAA, each have 2 sections with roughly anywhere from 11 to 15 teams. And there are 43 schools right now that offer girls lacrosse. According to U.S. Lacrosse, lacrosse is the fastest growing high school and college sport in the nation, and it was just approved to be in the Olympics. So it is now going to be an Olympic sport. And in doing the research that I did, I found that all of the WPIAL boys and girls lacrosse programs, with a couple of exceptions, Norwin is also a partially funded school sport. Penn Trafford is also funded by their club. I think they're in their 3rd or 4th year, and us. My daughter plays travel lacrosse, and so I'm with a lot of parents and coaches from around the area, and other districts are fully funding lacrosse. So what are we asking? We're asking that the board, this committee, and hopefully this gets taken to the full board, that they fully fund the Indiana high school boys and girls lacrosse programs in a manner that's consistent with other varsity sports. We would like this to begin this year, if at all possible. I know budgets are set, but budgets, I think, are also fluid in times of need. And I think that there is truly a need for this. And again, it's been a long time coming. And so we ask the question, if not now, when? The Gazette has done you no favors by continuing to post that we have a $1.3 million budget surplus. And so I'm going to, appeal to that if there is a good thing to do with that budget surplus, I advocate for lacrosse. Again, I'm not a person who's comfortable asking for money, but this is my daughter. These are kids that she has grown up with. These are families that I have come to know, and these are excellent people who have put a lot of time and effort into growing this sport in this community. I think it's a draw, from your side as far as families coming into the community, because we are the school in our county that actually offers lacrosse. And so I really do think that this is an investment that would pay dividends, not only for my kid and our kids, but also as we go into the future, that this is a great thing to add, to all the things that we already offer here in the district. So I really thank you for your time and hope that you'll take this under advisement. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free.
Any questions? Jared, can I impose on you to take a look at the spreadsheet and justify the actual cost, so that we know what the actual cost would be? Taking into account all those things that you're covering now, and that we would have to cover in addition. So, we'll get him to Did you work with Jared to get a verified number?
Yeah.
Happily.
Okay, 'cause I think my suspicion right now is your number's low.
I'm sure it is.
But by the time we get the district involved, it's gonna be low. So let's get a real number. We'll put it back on the agenda and talk about it. Anything from the committee?
I just have a real quick question.
Sure.
You had mentioned that on the cost of the uniforms and the equipment, the boys needed pad. Don't the girls get pads or?
No, we don't. They don't smack each other around quite as much as the boys do.
Of
No,
course not,
it's
but
a little.
It's played a different role.
It is. They're
Oh,
totally
different
different
roles?
roles. So the
Okay.
girls wear goggles. Trust me, they get some bumps and bruises too. But the boys is definitely a collision sport. So when you talk about the need for an EMT, in terms of like when you look at those concussion lists, the boys, that it's a collision sport. The girls, shall we
Not
say, is a
so
little more
much, yeah.
nuanced, but no, they play pretty rough. But yeah, so that's the big difference. So the girls have goggles and the boys wear the full pads and they have like long defensive sticks.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
My husband coaches IUP fencing, so I realize how whacking one another can get a little out of hand.
Yeah,
So I
that's the
just
big
wanted to-
difference.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the big difference. And certainly, we have talked to Jared a little bit about the finances of this. And you're right, the 22,000 is low because certainly if you're just starting up a program, there's going to be those startup costs, and then some of those costs get absorbed from year to year, such as the uniforms and some of the equipment. The nets that are up there on the field right now belong to the club, and we have talked about the idea of working with the district to provide some of that equipment to help offset some of those startup costs. And that's certainly something that, if I can speak on behalf of the club, that the club will be willing to negotiate.
Do you also play other East Point Rec Center? Or not?
We do, and that's something that the club also funds. We've had to cut back a bit, but again, that's where the club as a boosters organization could provide those opportunities. So we do play indoors. We get a couple hours once a week.
Do you use the soccer fields out there at all?
No, we've actually, our youth teams have been practicing and playing at Mac Park, again, as a cost saving measure because the football boosters, the Pbis football, that field that they have there, we've been able to work with them to get time on the field. They don't use it in the spring, and the Mac, the foundation and the park has been very, very
supportive.
they have been extremely supportive of this. And so that's also been kind of a godsend in terms of our finances, because prior to that, our youth teams did play on the turf and we would pay for that. But it was becoming an untenable situation. So we started looking for alternative places to play. Of course, that might be something that if we weren't paying for the high school, maybe our youth teams could come back and play on the turf at least part of the time, because that's a big deal, for them, as opposed to playing on a grass field to come up and play on the high school turf. So that would be something that would be great if we could offer that to the youth teams again, if we have the financial capabilities to do so.
And so at this point right now, how many of your coaches and volunteers are actual school district employees?
2,
Okay,
myself and Mr. Duffy.
okay.
At the volunteer coach level.
At the
Yeah,
volunteer
but-
level, our coaches, Joe Eckenrode is a graduate student at IUP. Khan Akbe he's the other. He's an IASD graduate and former IASD lacrosse player. A member of the community. Mike Weaver coaches multiple sports for the district. He might as well be a district employee. I mean, in essence, he is. And then my husband Al Lockard. He coached cross country with me and also coached track at the junior high level. So he also has had a commitment here and a relationship with the athletic department and program. And both Mike and Al have coached for 8 years. They've kind of risen up from the youth ranks, so they have a long history of coaching through the club as well.
Any other questions? Anything? Is there anything on the web? Anything from the room? Hey, we sure thank you for coming.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Do you have anything today? No? Everything's perfect?
Peach keeping.
Okay, get out of here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, folks.
Thank Ms. Lager.
I don't know who this goes to. Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
Just reminding yourself.
Okay, Mr. Harley, next on the list, we have the high school here today to present a couple different items related to graduation requirements. As we've been discussing the last several years, there's been some changes to high school graduation, different pathways that are, allow kids to graduate on time. And what we asked Mr. McElhaney to do is spend some time this evening to update the board about what our plans look like. He needs some approval from the committee and support from the committee as far as some of the changes, but we think it's important to let the board know what changes we made, why we made them, and then gather and hopefully get your support. He'll be joined by Mr. Johnson. He'll be helping out some areas, as well as Mr. Heinrich. So some of the items they worked on. But with that, Mr. Harley, if you're okay with it, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. McElhaney.
Thank you, Mr. Vukovich. Thank you to the academic committee for the opportunity to do some of these items. We'll start. They're on the agenda and they are linked for your review.
Make a sound.
Hello.
Mr. O'Neill, I know you're listening. If you could stop up, I'd appreciate it, sir.
Can you just wave your hands and illustrate it?
There he is, eh?
I hate this one. This wants me to download Google Sheets and I'm not doing it.
Here. So I only printed one. I didn't print everything because it was too.
I don't know why we have to get these printed.
Testing. I need to access the documents.
I only printed part of it. 'Cause
I don't think you're in the meeting.
I don't have a printer in my office. So
You can't.
I had to print it up.
Okay. Just a little preview while Randy is making those links work. Isd Graduation Requirements, those are the ones that are listed in the student planner. They will account for the changes regarding math credits. Thank you, Randy. And also for science. A little bit bigger, Randy.
Randy, if you could just zoom in a little bit more, we appreciate that, sir.
Thank you.
And if you can even go a little bit bigger, we appreciate it just a little bit more.
That's 200%. That's as far as I can go. Sorry.
They were good.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, what you're looking at is the first part of the information which is identified in the student handbook. Simply the credits for each of these areas that are required for graduation. And we have those core subject areas, required electives, and also the electives themselves at 7.5. Just a quick review of that. English 4 credits, mathematics 3, science is 3. And we have social studies at 4, and there are
Tom, can you mute your computer?
everybody mute their devices, please. Okay. There are footnotes accompanying each of those items as well. Health and Phys Ed, we made the change from 2 credits to 1.5. Senior Phys Ed is now an elective. That's why it's 1.5. Computer technology, the computer apps class, it also has a footnote. It's at 0.5 credit. Family consumer science / business, we made a change from just on your own family consumer science to career and work readiness course now, which is now an upperclassman course, so that those students who are learning the information about career readiness, it's more relevant and pertinent to their graduation time. And then also the electives, like I mentioned, 7.5. Randy,
This is what's currently required?
that is correct. Okay,
So
Randy,
This is this year's class.
yes. Randy, can you scroll down? Okay, the first item there, number 1, those are the changes that were made to the mathematics requirements, providing that the students complete in succession their courses up into the 3rd year of math. They are permitted by Pde to take personal finance 1 and 2 as a 3rd year math credit. We would like all students to take all years of math credits and personal finance, but the opportunity and option is there now that students can take up and through 2 credits, and then on the 3rd year, either take a math credit or personal finance, or they can take it all together. Personal finance then would act as an elective. But in this instance, for the 3rd credit, it would be a math credit.
Wait, for the first 2 credits, what courses are those typically?
Typically, grade level would be Algebra 1 and Geometry. And then, like you said, depending on the level, that could change. Now, there is a change to this. Instead of for the student having to wait until the 3rd year of mathematics to enroll in personal finance 1 or 2, they could enroll in it earlier and bank those. For instance, if they change their mind for the 3rd credit. We thought for those students who are business-minded and want to get into that track of BCIT, they could do so earlier. They can do it concurrently. And then depending on, what they took as their junior year, either count as a math credit or it would count toward their electives. All right, number 2, same idea, and this is consistent when we get to the graduation pathways. In Pathway 5, students are permitted to enter that pathway if they have passed a science course, a technology course, or environmental course. They could do this. So what we are doing the same thing for science is that they could enroll in a science of engineering as well as a CAD course, and that would suffice for the 3rd year of science. Same type of dynamic. Take it as elective, take it as a requirement. Okay, next, Randy, number 3. This is an existing practice, our ICTC students, because sometimes it's difficult to work their schedules because they're very tight. They can indeed take 1 fewer social studies credit because they're an ICTC student. Number 5, this is an existing one. This is the computer applications course, that they have some type of computer technology course going through their high school career. If they go to ICTC, that can suffice as well. Number 6, Randy.
Back up to number 3 and 4.
We'll go back up to 3 and 4, please.
The ICTC students have another column that they're not required to take some of the credits.
They are not required to take a 4th credit of social studies. They are required to take a computer technology course. However, some of those courses at ICTC can substitute for the computer apps course that they would take at IHS.
So in your opinion, they're getting the same information at a different building. So
They're getting a skill set. They're getting computer literacy. They're getting transferable skills. Yeah.
So, wait, just to make sure that we're understanding this correctly. So the ICTC course will count as a required class, not an elective? Is that what you're saying?
The ICTC course will fulfill
That requirement?
the elective requirement, yes.
The elective requirement for the computer course?
Correct.
and the complaining women officers,
Did you already start on number 4? Did I miss that?
Number 4? No, I did not. Okay. Number 4 is the one that the board had approved already. This was a reduction of credits for HPE or PE. Instead of requiring 2, it is now 1.5. That gives this, that will provide the students HPE grades 9, 10, and 11. The senior offering is PE. Simply physical education. They could take the yoga class or they could take the personal fitness class, but it counts as an elective now.
And the reason why I bring that up is because my kids that are seniors, they attended their first anatomy class today, and everybody wanted to put all the terms in a game that they had. They had to locate where in the body it was located. Most of the kids wanted to put it in the neck. And one kid thought the urethra was the uterus. So I'm a little bit thinking maybe a little bit more comprehensive. Well, I know that, but my God, I'm busy I was holding my head the whole time, face palming. So I don't know, maybe I've kind of.
Suggesting we do a little more with anatomy and health.
Just a little bit, maybe?
We are. The elementary level.
I will pass that along to our health teachers.
They had a great time. It's just that that need a lot of.
Okay. All right. Number 5, I spoke about computer applications. Number 6, Randy, if you could. Number 6, I previously discussed that the On Your Own course, which was taken usually in 9th grade for those career education workforce standards, that course has been renamed and redesigned. It is offered now as an upper class course, and it does provide those workforce standards education course, taking those elements that were in On Your Own, expanding them and making them more relevant for a student who is about to graduate from high school. Correct. All right, number 8, we'll go into more detail when we get to it, but that's just an awareness that the new Act 158, those graduation requirements from Pde are now in play, and they apply to the graduating class of 2023 and thereafter. Number 9 is a statement is already there, dealing with children with disabilities, talks about their IEPs and being able to work with that if need be. And number 10, early graduation is a possibility for our students. They would just need, as it says, to plan early so that they can indeed finish their graduation credits by the end of 11th grade. So that is the page that will replace the existing one that's in the student handbook, and that includes the changes for the math and for the science and for BCIT course as well.
Wait.
Yes.
Quick technical question. If a student finishes their graduation requirements by the end of the 11th grade, do they graduate with that 11th or with that class that's a year ahead of them?
They would
do they wait and graduate with their normal class?
We haven't had any do that. However, they would receive a letter of graduation so they could then go on to whatever institution of higher learning. As far as their diploma, I'd have to check if that would be based on the cohort or that's based on the cohort with which they would as 4-year or the cohort they would do as 3 years.
So I guess that's my question. Do they walk across the stage?
You don't need to know. He can hear you.
Okay, my question is, when would they walk across the stage for a board member to hand them their diploma at the end of their junior year, or do they come back at the end of their senior year to walk across the stage?
End of the junior year.
Thank you.
Yeah, they worked that hard. We want to celebrate that with them. Okay.
So wait, this is the page you're suggesting that will replace the page that's currently in the handbook?
Yes, ma'am.
2023.
When you approve it, we'll put it in there. And for different, for instance, the graduation requirements, PDs 2023. For others, depending on the year that's indicated in there.
This will apply to only the 9th class.
Well,
No, the 1.8 applies to the class of 2022.
Actually, it's to say 2023. My apologies.
Oh,
They,
you say 2023.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah, because of COVID, they put that off a year. They made it the class of 2023 now.
So this is where we're going in the short term.
This is.
This is where we're heading in the short term. Yes. This is.
I hope. Well, yeah, but just because my question is, do we have plans for other things to add in the future while this is for now?
Yes, each year we have an opportunity to put those into play.
Just because for a while now, we've been talking about dual enrollment and how that counts. And I'm honestly disappointed that we don't seem to have made significant progress on that. I'm hopeful that we will, but
Mr. Heinrich, you want to take this one?
I think we'll get there.
Yes, included in one of our recommendations is going to be that the dual enrollment works both ways, that if you take a class outside of our school district that counts for college credit, it will count in our schools as a credit for that course as well as an elective course, just like a class that we take in our schools will count for a college level course as well. So
Okay, no, because what you just said is what we're currently doing. But what I think we need to do is if we take a math class at IUP.
Yeah, we're doing both.
As a math class at the high school.
it does.
not as an elective.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
We shouldn't have a kid having to take 3 years of English and taking advanced English at the high school, at the college is only an elective.
Correct.
Is the point.
Right, that's my point.
That's opportunity for more discussion, but we worked through the credits already.
We can vote on it. We can make a recommendation.
Alright.
But what happens currently is that I'm a math genius. I go through our program. I go to the IUP. I take 3 math courses, and they substitute as electives. But I still have to come back and take a math class. And it seems like it's in the way of the advanced students.
If they exhaust all of our course options, then those courses they would take at IUP would apply toward their IHS education.
If they take an advanced math class, it would cover our subject matter in the required class.
If they have, for instance, let's say you had a student started early in a junior high school and they run through the succession of courses. And by, 10th grade, they've exhausted any and every course that we have that we can offer. The student could go to IUP, earn those credits, and it would apply toward us.
Tom, let me give a better example, and it's one that happened to my son. Yeah, I know.
But wait a minute, before you do that, I have some real concerns that we're willing to do that for kids who have exhausted all the classes in our curriculum, and then they can take a class at IUP, and it counts as a math class, but any other student can't do that. To me, it doesn't, it's not logical.
But that's exactly where I was going to go with this. And those of you may have heard this story before, but my son took the 4-credit English class at IUP the fall semester. He was still required, in order to meet the graduation requirement, to take a full year of English at the high school. This is the classic example, I think, where Tom is going with this. So what I did was I signed him up for the lowest quality course I could get away with at the high school, because I wanted him to put his efforts in passing the 4 credits at IUP. In addition, he was also taking a 3-credit sociology course. So he was going to write his proverbial butt off that semester. He didn't need the high school English class that he was forced to take. And there were no options. I would have loved to have put him in a speech class, but the counselor said, nope, he's required, graduation, has to do the English. That's the issue that I think we need to be talking about. Is that so a student that can take an IUP course in lieu of whatever we've put up there for that graduation requirement.
Well, we can go back and review that. I can just give you a little background that when dual enrollment started, that there was a lot of discussion, agreement with a lot of stakeholders, including our association. So those were standards that were set. They just haven't changed. We're at a time now where it's become so common practice that it deserves an opportunity to revisit that.
But wait, do you understand where my point is? You're already doing it for some kids, but yet that's not an option for all kids.
What we're doing is we're doing it working within the parameters we have. Those parameters need to be reviewed and revisited so that we could make those changes.
This is something we've talked about, and with our ability to reach out to community colleges, IUP, and even further. Okay, if I could take a government class from Princeton and get credit for it, I should be able to substitute it directly for a requirement here.
Well, these parameters were developed at a time when it was all new, and it's like we were finding our way through it. And now, this system of dual credit opportunities has become so mainline and mainstream that we want to be able to do these things. We just have to go back and revisit. So what you were seeing are the things that are working within the structure we have and be able to look at it another time.
I'm not arguing with what we have, but we've been talking about this for a while.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We can bring that back to the board for the consideration. Yeah. And we've gotten to a point, as Mr. McElhaney is saying, where it's time. It's time to look at these requirements and see what we can do. So we absolutely can bring that back to you. Sure can.
I think it's critical to, I'd like to get out of the way of our advanced students.
Well, any student.
Well, but no, I'm talking any student, but the students who are aggressive and go after the credits and take the overloads and work on Saturdays, I'd like to get the yes to them.
I
Okay.
think it's more than students that are aggressive. I mean, some kids have to work, they don't have time to, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I think it should be open to whatever doing it should be.
I'm not, don't misinterpret my comments to be restricting it. Yeah, I want to open up the doors and give these kids an opportunity to taste the world. And we certainly have that opportunity now. And you're right, 15 years ago, it wasn't that way. Okay. And when my kids were going, when your kids were going through, to get the IUP required a letter from the Pope. You had to meet all these requirements. And so it was, so you only had a very few number of kids go off campus, and you're probably still in that way.
We did though make some change. We did though make some changes because at first, Tom, the requirements to do dual enrollment, you had to have a grade average of what was it, 3.5 or something. Okay, and we were at least able to get them to reduce that to make it a more acceptable to more students. I think Mike's been kind of busting his butt here to say a few things, so let's.
No, it's okay.
It's been quite a long time.
Look, I think the conversation is good. I think it's long overdue. I think you have our word that we will eliminate barriers. Last thing we need to do as administration is put up barriers to kids have opportunity to follow their pathways, whether it's post-secondary, whether it's career and technical education. Our job's not to put up walls, it's to tear them down. So duly noted, we will look at it. We'll take care of it. I'll personally get involved to make sure that we have a clear idea of what we're doing, bring it forward, because the last thing we want to do as administration, put walls up for kids, right? We want to provide hope and opportunity. And right now we need to increase the amount of opportunity kids have, and that's something we'll do.
Can you go back to that chart, not today, the chart that shows the breakdowns of the credits to 24?
Yeah, Randy, can you?
No. I'd like to see what the state actually requires. Okay, what we're doing in excess of what the state requires. I'd also like to see what the ICTC students have, which is probably almost what we do. But I'd like to see that on a chart if that's possible. Can we do that?
We could definitely do that. The one thing I would support just publicly is the idea of personal finance. Makes a lot of sense to me. Whether you want to add additional math class or in place of it, it's an option. I think it's a long do-over option. Part of local control is everyone gets to develop their own graduation requirements, and that's some of the problem. I think for a long time, we're at a point in society where bad debt, student loan debt, credit card debt has have a negative impact on families and on kids. And I think personal finance is a course I think well worthy of kids being required to take some part of their high school time. So I applaud Wade for making it as an option as the law allows it to. But I think down the road you can always look at increase in the required graduation requirements or at least at this point, it has my support because I think it's long overdue as personal finance being a graduation requirement when you look at the amount of debt the American society is in people.
If that's what you want to do, or whatever else you're gonna do, it saves you.
Well, some of our sister districts are getting 2 years. Two credit years.
But we're not quite there.
No, we're not, but we expect in the next month to increase our number of courses by at least a dozen with WCC, meaning college and high school courses that we offer. And I meet tomorrow with IUP to have a conversation about limiting some barriers there. As I said previously, I think about a month ago, Mr. Harley, I love the courses they take and I love the opportunity for kids to go down there. What I have concerns about or need to have a conversation about is I don't like the additional price tag that goes along with it for different fees. So yeah, up front, it looks nice on paper, $250 for a course, but then you have at least another $250 to $300 in fees. So that $250 course becomes $500-600 course, which I think is a barrier for some kids. So tomorrow's the journey. It's my fault I didn't get it done since last month, but our meeting's tomorrow. And we're going to work towards that, have an honest conversation. Well, that's fair enough. But I think it's long over time that, I don't work at the post-secondary level as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to cast stones, but I think it's long overdue that post-secondary institutions start looking at kids other than a 4-year model. I think it's time to look at a 2-year model, 3-year model, maybe 4, maybe 5. I don't know. It depends on the child, but we keep talking about this personalization of education, but we seldom do that at the secondary level. We really need to have honest conversation on what that looks like. In my meeting tomorrow, I'll just be full disclosure with this whole entire board and those who watch it online. I want to grow in your own program. I want to be able to keep the best and brightest in Indiana. For a long time, but we always told kids, leave, go see the world. And then we all got mad when they left, right? So when you see the population drain, it's because we told them to leave. And now we're shocked that they listen to us. If they want to do that, we want to pursue that. We want to encourage them. But there's also great things here in Indiana too. And I think we can create a great system that could be a model for the state. When you look at K-12 education, partnering with Westmoreland Community College, as well as IUP, we just need a little bit more time to develop it. And tomorrow is a big step, next step in the process. And I promise you we'll get that done.
I'd like to understand a little bit about what the state actually requires us to do, and then how much flexibility we have on the other side of that.
We can definitely get that.
To the point where can we require a student to take a college course, how do we treat the ICT students differently than for their career path than we do the kids going to Princeton? So those are things that I don't think I have a good enough foundation to have even intelligent discussions. So I need a little remedial education.
On some of it.
Yeah.
We're going to hit on some of it here.
Well, I was going to say, Mr. McElhaney's presentation is a lot of just that, where we're going to have pathways that are custom built to support students that are interested in different things, have skills that's in different things, different goals in life. So that's really what his presentation is about, to align with the PA changes in the law.
Another thing I'll add before he gets going too much, 'cause when he gets going, I can't stop him, so I don't want to get in his way too much. There's a lot of federal examples out there as far as career pathways and done well. We are going to look at exploring that to make sure that this program is interconnected, meaning where kids can take academic and elective courses and it leads to some sort of certification, either through credits or industry credentials. So that's something we're working on. I think that's something that a lot of high schools need throughout the country. And you do see a lot, though, nationally doing it. We've started early process, just so you know where we're at. We've been working with Pde to get in some technical support to help us develop our model. We're also part of the Redefining Ready cohort that you allow us to. And maybe, Wade, I'd ask you to send some information to them about that cohort so they can see what that looks like. So you're going to see an evolution of the high school to incorporate career pathways and embed it in there. Again, to be redundant on purpose, our opportunity to take dual enrollment credits, but also the opportunity to earn certifications and industry credentials that lead to post-secondary employment and opportunities. Mr. McElhaney?
Okay, Randy, can we go to
Mr. McElhaney, one more question. Ms. Josie?
Ms. Cunningham?
I have a concern about ICTC students only being required to take 3 of 4 social studies classes. I'm hoping you'll look at that seriously. ICTC has always been set to the side in our system, not in a detrimental way, but that it has worked out that way. I would like to see them fully participate in the social studies program as much as they can. I know their schedules are tight, but I think that's a concern of mine.
Understood.
also, to jump on that bandwagon a little bit, I want to stop sending students to ICTC because we can't teach them math at the high school and we can't teach them reading. There's a lot of
We
default.
don't send students to ICTC because they can't learn math at the high school.
There's a lot of remedial education going on. These guys need, and some of that's because we're doing remedial education a good bit.
Well, and
Across the board.
ICTC has their own program there as well, so that they can stay in the program and learn the math consistent with their program area. They do a nice job of that.
I like to get ahead of those problems. Okay, that we send kids that are prepared to do the math and do the welding at the same time, as opposed to backtracking.
Understood.
But I want to do the same thing between 7th and 8th grade too.
I agree. I think it should happen earlier, and I think we're doing that as a system. We're, with this board's emphasis and focus on the elementary and bringing them, helping those students, I think you'll see those results grow throughout the system, so that when they do get to the senior high school, less attention will have to be placed on remediation and instead more on their pathways. Okay.
Would you like to continue?
Please. Randy, maybe when we go to the next link, Future Ready, Pennsylvania. Okay, this is more of a visual representation. Currently, we use, it's called Smart Futures Program. And what that program does is it allows us to not only meet the requirements of Future Ready PA Index, where during a student's high school career, they have to complete 8 career readiness artifacts. We wanted to share with you that we are doing more than compliance, Mr. Vukovic alludes to. We look for impact. And what we're able to do, you scroll down a little bit, Randy. Thank you. You will see in each grade level, students will complete activities for each grade level, except for the senior year, which there are 3. And these activities are aligned with age developmental progression. And the students will do these, and to count as an artifact, the student needs to complete the activity, but there must also be a reflection component included with that. Students across the Commonwealth are required to complete 8 artifacts. We have 15 because this program is very powerful. We say, why stop at 8 when there are other opportunities for the students to gain more information and knowledge about those areas. It doesn't look, the students don't see this. I just put this together for this evening so you could see what the representation is, what those areas include. Okay. And then if we could go to next, Randy, the IHS Ready, the culminating project. This is not only a culmination project, but it is represents the culminating efforts of a team of our career readiness team at the senior high school, involve about 7 to 8 people. And what we have spent the last 2 years doing is building on the Indiana County Ready program. The Indiana County Ready program is a program where there are 6 characteristics or attributes that we want our students to have to be pre-employable, to be career ready. We've added a 7th, which is the community service. But I won't go through each one of these. I'll mention what they are, but they are similarly designed by grade level. For the 9th grade, students will work on communication and attendance. In the 10th grade, they'll work on respect and work ethic. 11th grade, they'll work on reliability and professionalism. And during the senior year, they will complete a community service opportunity. As you will see, we'll go through this first one, communication. Every one of these and their activities therein are linked to the career education workforce standards. So you will see, first there is a definition that we define what each of these are for common knowledge, and then the workforce standards, which are identified and aligned to these activities. This first part, video testimonials, we wanted to bring perspective of individuals in those industries, those career clusters into the classroom. And how this is working, IHS was recently awarded right near the end of school a competitive grant through the Tri-County Workforce Investment Board. It's a $2,000 grant, and that would provide not only the opportunity to have video testimonials pertaining to each one of these characteristics, but it would provide experience to the students who are doing this. Our students in digital media production class, Mr. Pushkar, we had 2 or 3 students said, hey, I'm interested in doing this. And they started this summer meeting with different employers and asking them questions that pertain to the particular interpersonal skill, this first one, communication. So we have a few individuals who already indicated to Mark Hilliard, the president of Chamber of Commerce, Indiana County, hey, I'm interested in providing information about this. So what they will do is a 3 to 5 minute video testimonial, and they will also act as a contact person for students dealing with communication, dealing with that particular cluster group. There are 16 different career clusters, and there are 7 interpersonal skills that we are promoting. Have 5 each, so that'd be 35. And if there's 16, there will be a cycling of 2 of those, and each one will cycle twice with a remainder of 3. So they'll get that information and have a little more opportunity if they have interest in that particular one. We're also working with Tri-County Workforce Investment Board. They recently hired Dr. Corin, who's a former superintendent of Homer Center. He is now the career coordinator for the 3-county area. And he is also working on putting together video testimonials about different careers that will use ICTC students to make those videos. But we are focusing on those particular interpersonal skills using our students. So we were awarded that $2,000 grant, which is really nice. Randy, can you scroll down to the communication skills that you need to succeed in the workplace? One of our other joint ventures, we partnered with Pde, Dr. Pam Emery, at the behest of Mr. Vukovic, who was able to align us with her, and taking social and emotional learning and embedding it into career readiness learning and what we call interpersonal skills. And each one of these interpersonal skills has an activity where students will be doing career exploration through Smart Futures, identifying 3 possible careers, and then taking these statements, these I can statements, ones that are sought after by business, doing some research with it, either reading literature or watching videos, and then having to describe how that communication skill would relate to their particular career interest, and then having the students rank those. We did this as a pilot project back in the spring with our 5 or 6 career readiness coordinators, team members, and it was an overall success with that. We also are using this as a basis for our parent engagement nights. Okay. Randy, would you go to the next one? Another initiative that we're working on is our outreach to families. This one gives an opportunity for students and their parents or their guardians to sit down and do a self-assessment or self-evaluation of how they rate themselves accordingly. I can do this. What do they believe is the rating? And there's a rubric it goes after, and I'll show you that here. But and then also rank according to importance to get them to think a little more about those items. But that's an inroad for us. We have APTT going on. We also have at the high school iConnect. Mary left. Mary joined our first session of that, by the way. And we're trying to engage our parents in this process as well. Once the student goes through and identify and self-assess, would you scroll up to the SMART goal, Randy? Students will then identify a SMART goal. We include an example in there, particularly this one about attendance. And then they would have a SMART goal for instance, in ninth grade for attendance, and then respect, work ethic, reliability, professionalism, and community service. So they're doing 2 each year, except for the senior year, they have 1. But there's a self-evaluation component of that too. We want them to start thinking in terms of SMART goals, to be able to measure their progress, to take ownership of their work. Okay, scroll down. The next section right now, it is optional, but it is our inroads into Pbis, giving students an opportunity to be recognized and acknowledged for the work that they may already been doing or that they seek to do. Dr. Runge, we met earlier on, we were talking about Pbis, and we were at the senior high level, we were talking about how do we make it a natural fit, make it so that students are intrinsically motivated. And this is a way, because we have so many students who are doing so many good things, that this is an opportunity to recognize them and also give students also the opportunity to work towards something, to get that recognition, to complete this communication. And Randy, would you scroll down? And this is the rubric for communication, working with Mark Hilliard and with Indiana County Ready, and developing this in such a way that it is truly growth-based. So students have opportunity to not only to have emerging expectations, not only to meet them, but also to exceed them. And this is done for every one of these components within this program. Okay. That is IHS Ready. That'll be a component of students. That'll be their culminating project. And what it does is it begins to integrate social and emotional learning. It begins to integrate the outreach to parents. It begins to integrate Pbis as well. And what it does, I believe, is it ties it together and provides students a natural goal. We're doing this because we want you to be career ready, and I think it'll be a really good opportunity for them to not only explore, but to practice and to have those skills necessary.
And it is really the culminating project for all of our social emotional learning. We've built the system from pre-K all the way up to 12, and this is where it all translates to career readiness. Social emotional learning in 5th grade, which is, taking control of your social emotional competencies, being able to deal with conflict, being able to, be resilient, turn into skills that translate to the workplace or to college readiness at the secondary level. So it's a really nice job where they've aligned the social emotional learning necessary and made it a real world skill and tied it into Act 158. So it all, streamlines and aligns together. So
thank you, Mr. Heinrich. Randy, could you go to Act 158 Pde Graduation Requirements? We went over this before, explored it with you, reviewed it with you, but there were 2 changes that were made. I just want to bring it to your attention. Okay, Act 158 Pde Graduation Requirements. These are the pathways that replace Keystone exams solely as the graduation requirement. There are 5 different pathways. The first pathway, similar to what we've had, is that you score proficient on your Keystone exams and you've met Pde's graduation requirements. They added a second one, the second pathway. You score proficient on 1. Correct. Correct. You score proficient on 1, no less than basic on the other 2 for a composite score of 44.52 or greater. You've met your graduation requirement. Where they've made changes, pathway 3, Randy, if you could scroll up to Roman numeral 3. Thank you. It's the alternate assessment pathway. And this one has pretty much stayed the same. Basically, what they have to do is demonstrate proficiency through another type of assessment. And in this one, they need to only choose one other component, one other category here to demonstrate indeed that they are able to show proficiency on another assessment. What's consistent with pathways 3, 4, and 5? To get into the pathway, they must have passed the subject. For instance, if they're in this pathway because the Keystone Algebra, then they have to demonstrate indeed that they passed the course to be able to access this pathway. So it gives them an opportunity to work in different ways so they can show that proficiency. Randy, would you go to pathway 4, which is known as the evidence-based pathway? Okay, evidence-based pathway. If you could scroll up a little bit more, Randy, I want to show what the changes were since we last reviewed this with everyone. A little bit further. Okay. The last time we reviewed this with you, we didn't have any information from Pde on the service-based project or the internship. Recently had a meeting and they explained to us that that is a local decision. So what we did is for this time is we aligned the service learning project, the hours to be consistent with the IHS Ready. So the kids aren't doing two different things. So if indeed that they choose this pathway and they choose this component of the pathway, community service, those hours would apply to the IHS Ready as well. The second item is the internship or the co-op experience. We don't have cooperative, that's more ICTC does that, but we do have internships. And again, that was allowed to be determined by the LEA. We already have an internship program, and that's a nice platform for this to allow students to meet that. They have to choose 3 of these components accordingly, but that's the evidence-based one. And the last one is pathway 5. Randy, if you could scroll up to Roman numeral 5, thank you. These are for our ICTC students. If they did not score proficient or score the composite score or did not choose one of the other pathways, they can choose this one. And when I talked earlier about the graduation requirements, how it was consistent with pathway 5, the previous 2 pathways, 3 and 4, said to enter a pathway, you must have a passing grade in the corresponding subject area. Algebra 1 for the Algebra 1 test, biology for biology test, and literature for the 10th grade class. This one provides some flexibility. If those students, those CTE students who would choose this pathway, if proficiency on Keystone exams did not apply, they must have a pass for any science, technology, ecology, or environmental science course. So that's why that was the basis for the reasoning for saying for the 3rd year science, you could take science of engineering or CAD in lieu of a 3rd year science. We still encourage students to take the 3 years of science, but this is an opportunity with the graduation requirements. But this one here is aimed primarily for the CTE instructor or CTE students. You're saying, wow, this one doesn't look as involved as the others. And I would explain that because CTE students are dedicating 3 years to a program, working toward industrial certification, that there's a level of career readiness that explains why this one isn't as involved as the others, because they're doing a lot of work for the other 3 years. Any questions about the pathways? I know we reviewed it before. It's a lot of information. This is a visual because PD gave us a lot of information, and we need something that the students could follow and fill out and parents could see. Now, I want to give a shout out to Wes Matthews, our IT guy. Wes has done a remarkable job of taking PowerSchool and being able to upload standardized test information. So it's there. But the one problem we ran into with the one vendor, Mr. Heinrich and I had met with and talked to, was they couldn't put anything in for like the alpha information. For instance, one of the components is that a student has a letter guaranteeing full-time employment beyond high school. Well, they couldn't track that. And their answer was, you track it, give it to us, and then we'll put it into the dashboard. I said, why are we doing that? Adding an extra step. Wes, who did a remarkable job, was able to develop a dashboard on PowerSchool. There will be a place for the standardized assessments, but there will also be a place for all like the yes, no, or validation of the things that don't come in one big file. And that what's really nice is PowerSchool is available to both students and parents, so they can see and watch and engage and check on progress. whereas the other company would only do the mass data like from Keystones or SATs or ACTs. Well, that was only part of the information. We wanted to be able to provide complete information. So a big shout out to Wes for doing that. Those are the graduation requirements. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Johnson, talk about the CCR Advisory Program. Randy, can you go to that next link, please? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. Our CCR program is like the vehicle that puts all these things together. There's a lot of different information. There's a lot of different statewide initiatives, local initiatives that we're working on. And to put it all in one place, we've developed a CCER class. CCER stands for College, Career, and Employment Readiness. Our students will start, and we've just started. We ran it last year, but this is the first year that we're going to be doing this. But students currently have a CCER teacher, and that'll be their CCER teacher for their entire time that they're at IHS. So those students will have an opportunity to work through all of the things that Mr. McElhaney was just talking about, all of the career artifacts that they'll have to do. They'll be working on that with a group, and they'll be going through and they'll be tracking that, and their CCER teacher will be working with them as they grow and they start to move along. One of the other benefits of our CCER program is that when we do our APTT nights, that's the hub for our families to meet with their teacher. So it'll have a couple benefits. One, it just shows how significant and how much of emphasis we're putting on career readiness, and that's the place where we want our parents to have an opportunity to see what's going on at school and to be able to stay up to date on all those things. But two, it also provides the parent with a point of contact, somebody that they've been working with for a couple of years, a teacher that they'll feel comfortable if they ever have a question. And obviously they could go to any number of places, but that's just one more place along the way to connect our community and our kids to our school, because we believe that that's important. And obviously all of these things that we're doing here, we think that are important, but the career readiness is something that.
And just as a reminder, APTT is Academic Parent Teacher Teams. It's one of the initiatives we have in place now to engage parents. Academic Parent Teacher Teams, yes, ma'am. So it's one of our efforts now to really engage parents in the process and kind of pull back the curtain and explain the why and activate parents as partners in the educational process rather than just talking to parents. We want to start talking with parents, and that's what that is. So when you use the acronym, I know that Mr. Harley, doesn't like acronyms, so I wanted to explain what it was. Thank you.
That's the military in me coming back out. But no, honestly, it's really an opportunity, and we really feel too that it's going to help grow our parent engagement, because sometimes now we have parent engagement nights that don't necessarily provide more fruit than we may have had when it started. But APTT is really an opportunity for in a small group to really develop that community piece of it. And the academic parent teacher teams are a big piece of that. So CCR takes it all together. It's the vehicle that helps drive, all of the things that we're doing. But for students, that's where it's all going to make sense too.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson's done a yeoman's job of scheduling and putting the students with those advisors. Like you said, it'll be grade level. So we're looking forward to those advisors learning as the students do, but seeing those students grow over time to have that connection, that long-term connection. So, okay, the last item, Randy, this is just for your information to show you the scope, the comprehensiveness of what we've been doing over the last 2 years with college, career, and employment readiness. If you had a chance to see it, there are links to all these items. And all we did was identify maybe like 3 main points of each one of these areas. We had an opportunity today, Mr. Vigovich provided that opportunity that we could present to U.S. Congressman GT, Glenn Thompson, and we had a really nice opportunity to review that with him today. But these items are representative, the hub, and the 6 spokes, as we call them, of our career readiness. And we're very proud of the work of our team and appreciate the opportunity this evening to share it with you.
I would just like to commend Mr. McElhaney and Mr. Johnson for the work here. Just to kind of put in the perspective what they've accomplished here was Act 339 requires that all school districts have a plan to make all of our students career ready. And there are certain checkpoints that you have to comply with. And what they've done here is they've gone far above complying. They've actually built a model that a lot of people at the state are very excited about and think that this could actually be a model for other school districts. When they, the compliance is the minimum, and what they've done here is actually made something meaningful, something that is going to be able to be tracked, and something that students can actually feel confident that they are ready by going through this process. So they've aligned 339 with 158, which are the graduation pathways, and put it all together in our social emotional learning program. So they've really done a nice job aligning all those pieces and making a program that makes sense for our students and our families. So kudos, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Heinrich. Any more questions?
This amount of information is dizzying. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to develop it.
This will be a continuing conversation.
Yes, sir.
And we, at least I, as a board member, don't want this to get pushed to the back burner. I think it's time to push us forward, make the changes that we need to make, incorporate some of the things that we've talked about.
Are we going to have to vote on something?
Yes, someday. Not now.
But when?
Well, this coming Monday, we're going to ask you to vote on the changes to the graduation, or the graduation requirements that will include the request that the board made this evening for us to add. That needs to go into the handbook as soon as possible. So those graduation requirements that have changed, a few of those you already approved, the gym requirement going from 2.0 to 1.5, the math requirement being an option, the tech ed being an option for certain students. And again, we're just trying to create those pathways for students, their interests, and then we'll add the stipulation with dual enrollment working both ways. Truly? Yes, ma'am.
Or Rob, I don't know if you know, how flexible is the CCR program and career artifacts? Is that set in stone and that's what we have to do, or do we as an institution have some flexibility as far as the student, if the student comes in and they already know what they want to do? Doing career exploration may not.
The 8 artifacts are required.
Okay.
You're required to have so many in career exploration, so many in career preparedness, etc. So that's the compliance piece, though. This system makes sure that there's a foundation in each of those, but then we'll push the student to their interests, obviously. So if you have a student that has an interest and knows what they want, yes, we have to check those boxes on the requirements for the state, but we can also help them achieve that goal.
So just a quick follow-up. So if a student was interested in some sort of medical arts, then there would be a whole number of different career pathways that they could look at, whether it was a doctor, whether it was a nurse, whether it was a psychiatrist,
I want to, if I could talk about that, Mr. Vukovic, working with Redefining Ready at School District 214, gave us a great model for pathways. And it looks like they took their course description handbook, kind of like what we'd like to do. Instead of it just being an index of courses, instead looking at the career clusters, those 16, identifying pathways, but then using identifying the opportunities that the students have in high school beyond the graduation requirements, but to start to put those together. So when a parent goes through there, they're not looking just, oh, where's the algebra course? This is the course description. But instead, the student and the parent now see Algebra 1 is essential to not only graduation requirements, but perhaps this particular pathway, or the anatomy and physiology class is essential to this pathway. So it really gives opportunity to have discussions about what students might want to do and explore that. Whereas now it's good information, but it's information about courses and not pathways.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Next on our list, I omitted this from the agenda originally, so I offered Justin a couple of minutes to talk about a partnership he is working with the Indiana ARC Association. He's going to pass out a couple little cards for you to understand what we're looking at partnering up with and what that impact that has for our county as well as our community.
Thanks, Mr. Vukovic. We have been working with Michelle Jordan, who is from the ARC of Indiana County, and she's relatively new in her role as the executive director there. One of the things that we have coming up is each year as a special education program, we are required to do trainings for parents. And in talking with Michelle, that is one of their objectives at the ARC of Indiana County as well. And so in talking with her, we sought out some local folks from IUP and other places and have a list of presenters that would be willing to do this for free for us. The list of topics would be autism, behavior support, transition, OVR, the science of literacy, general IEP overviews, and then also procedural safeguard overviews. So the idea is to provide a day-long training workshop for parents that are interested. Our goal is to be able to open this. Now, this will be offered by the ARC and Indiana Area School District, but the goal is to be able to offer this to the entire county. And so the initial cost for this to get lunch and breakfast for all of our parents that would be in attendance would be $3,400. But the idea is we're going to present this to the other directors of special education across the county. I see no reason why the other directors would not be involved because they also have the same requirements to provide these types of training. So the idea is to be able to provide this training to all of the county. Again, the highest cost that we would have would be $3,400. But I would anticipate, and I've already talked with a few other directors of special education at other Indiana schools, and they would be willing to also be involved. So we would share the cost with other school districts. So just wanted to bring that up. We do have quite a few presenters. I think we have 8 presenters now on topics ranging various topics within special education. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. That will be on the agenda for Monday night.
Not this Monday night.
The following Monday night.
13th. Okay, so we need to be sure. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have no meeting next week. It's Monday the 13th is the next board meeting.
Mr. Hurley, that's all we have on that subject. If we'll take any questions at this time. Okay, moving on to non-agenda items. Chapter 49, there are some proposed changes to the PA code surrounding teacher induction and post-secondary training for educators. And it's in draft status. Public comment just ended, but I think the biggest takeaway for me to make this board feel comfortable is the changes that you started 3 years ago is now going to be adopted throughout the entire Commonwealth. So when we made the switch to the science of reading, they are now called structured literacy. Why the different name, I don't know. But if you look at the definition lines up to the work that we did. So I just wanted to celebrate you and the kudos to you for making the change because, a lot of times, Mr. Hurley, we talk, I think, incorrectly about achievement gaps. And when you start talking about achievement gaps, this is my personal opinion. If you have a question about it, I can address anyone who may want to question it. But when you start talking about achievement gaps, you start talking about placing blame on families and placing blames on kids. I think what we have to do as a society is start looking at what opportunity gaps exist for kids, right? What barriers we can control. And that's where our MTSS platform comes into place, that we want to eliminate barriers to make sure kids can get what they need when they need it. But I also think the other big gap that we have to talk about, and there's 2 more of them, the knowledge gap that exists in some of our students, especially those who are more at risk. And most importantly, finally, the gap that exists between research. What I think is important for schools to do now is really partner with our post-secondary institutions to look at the research that exists out there and start, building and bridging those gaps. And this legislation, in my opinion, is a huge step in the right direction. People can come and talk to you about the need for comprehension skills and strategies, but comprehension strategies are not that. They're outcomes, right? You build comprehension through the work we're doing. So all of this is really to validate the work that we did. We started 3 years ago. You're going to see this codified in the code, and it's going to be a requirement for all 500 school districts that are going to be serving and training educators here in the Commonwealth. And more importantly, I think you're going to see a wave, though, not only impact the K-12 education, but if I'm a post-secondary institution, I would really take a long look at this and ask yourself, how do you align yourself to prepare kids? Because there's a lot of great time, money, resources, and effort to go into retraining people in the area of structured literacy. So this is a huge step in the right direction. So when you talk about the need for alignment, this is a large message, in my opinion, not only K-12, but K-16, how we prepare educators and train them. If you look at the law in detail, they'll define on page 3 what structured literacy is, but you go to page 9, they talk about how the need to codify it in your professional development plan, which we are currently working our comprehensive plan as we speak. So we're well ahead of where other school districts, a lot of other school districts are. But it is a moment just to celebrate you and the faith that you took in making a change because it's now validated. Ms. Lieber?
Yes, I want to say that, yes, we as a board did pass this and support this, but I want to thank you and your team for bringing it to us. It was your idea, your vision, your research that led us to do the right thing, and you and your team need to be applauded for that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lieber. So it's a big step in the right direction, Mr. Harley. You see what we started 3 years ago, again, going to be codified in code. So hobby teaching, optional teaching of this is not really part of the plan. So we're quite proud of the work that everyone's doing in this area to bring some awareness. But I think, again, you'll see this reverberate, in my opinion, not beyond K-12, into post-secondary education and training as well.
If I remember right, we saw some preliminary numbers that was the first time in my time on the board where the reading scores actually advance. And that's phenomenal. We've been trying to do this since you're on the board, but 25 years ago.
15 years.
Yeah.
What I wanted.
I mean, it's been frustrating because our reading scores and our math scores have been plateaued for forever in spite of all our efforts. And this is the first time that we've seen a hint that our reading scores are improving.
And Tom, I actually did a study on that and presented it to the board in one of my younger years on the board, how much it had plateaued, and there was very little improvement over time.
And we appreciate the accolades and the comments. The most important thing that we have to remember is we have great teachers. Our teachers are never the issue. It's just we had a broken system. And now we're revamping the system to be more aligned with research that's in the best interest of kids. And our biggest asset always has been and will be our teachers, right? What we're doing, what this is, I think speaks to, is that alignment of I talked about knowledge and research coming together to help infuse teachers with better tools, to equip them with better tools to do their job. So we're really proud of what we're doing. And next month, we're going to look at our PSSA data that came in. I told you publicly, I thought I would not have, let me try to state this clearly. Do I believe in standardized tests? I do, and the value they bring, but I also don't know if the test results we're going to get is reflective of the work we're doing, especially what kids encountered during the pandemic. But the fact is we even stayed close to our scores in previous years in the middle of a pandemic with over 1,000 kids quarantined, I think is remarkable in itself. So the teachers did a great job, and we're starting to make strides, and we're starting to make progress. But I would only urge a sense of caution that, when you try to implement change to this level throughout the entire system, it's a 3 to 5 year process, and we're making great strides. And that's really appreciative of your efforts as well as the teachers and everyone else involved in. So we're excited about this change. And I think, unfairly, people like to criticize and make comments when they really don't know what they're speaking about. And I think this speaks to the fact that this just wasn't our idea. This change is now impacting the whole entire Commonwealth, and it's going to be reflected in professional development plans that are required by code for all 500 school districts there. Okay. Moving on, we'll make it quick. Just there's a hyperlink, sir. We wanted to let the board know. We weren't able to have an outreach committee tonight, but we want to make the board aware of there's back to school nights. This has been communicated on our website through our social media. We just want to let the community and board members know about that. I also included an article on learning loss. There's a neat article that came out with regards to learning loss over the pandemic and what that looks like. And again, I applaud you for taking time out to really line our efforts to provide that summer programming that we think was valuable. But also now we're going back to 5 days a week. We're allowed to bring back those intervention periods and use those resources where they should be. Our MTSS platform, in my personal opinion, will matter more than ever because we're going to have gaps that we have to fill in, and we're going to work like heck to go in and provide the supports that students need. But we're quite proud of that as well. Any questions on the last two items regarding back to school nights and article regarding learning loss? They're just for your information. Last thing, we updated our social media policy to include different social media outlets. The one thing that I approved as per the policy that allows me to do so is an athletic Twitter account. We do a good job communicating with families about all the things going on academically. I just don't do a good job updating people on game results or scores. I never did. So what we did was we empowered Mr. Lazanik and Mr. Shirley under Wade's supervision to go through and create an athletic Twitter account for those people to follow so they can report out scores. But also, as you know, you approved the agreement with Render Broadcasting. It could be posted on there as well. So if people want to go through and view those live streaming events, it kind of separates it from being part of our district account. And I think it's the right thing to do.
That also will make it more timely.
Absolutely.
That's one of the problems of all the teams that we have, finding out who won, who lost, where they're playing next. And that's certainly, Twitter is geared up for that virtually instantaneous communications.
Agreed. Madam Vice President?
I just think that committee needs to be utilized for better communications. It seems to me that today I wanted to know something about the calendar, and it took a while to find the actual school calendar. It wasn't hard, but could you consider making a block at the bottom where you can get right to the calendar of events and you can see eventually that could be developed into a more interactive tool?
Yes, ma'am. Let me see what I can do. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Harley, if there's no other questions, everything else is just the individual building report outs, but I think I'll defer to you if you'd like to end. I know we made a commitment to try to end within 2 hours. And I think if you allow that, then we met our commitment. If not, I'll defer to you, sir, if you want the buildings to speak out and report out.
We're going to end in 2 hours and leave these poor schools not reporting. So if they could compress
Yes, sir.
Communications. Into 4
Absolutely.
minutes.
We'll just go in the order that they appear on the agenda. We'll start with the high school. Mr. McElhenney? Yeah, you'll have to use the microphone, sir. I apologize. And while Mr. McElhenney is getting ready, maybe each principal from each of the respective buildings can come up and take the microphone when he concludes.
Okay. I'm going to go real quick here, Mr. Harley. IHS freshman and new student orientation. I just want to say it was a really big success, and primarily so because of the efforts of our student ambassadors and SGA students, as well as the efforts of our leadership seminar students. They did a remarkable job welcoming the ninth grade students and the new students to our building. Sorry, I get tired here. Everything from when they met the kids at the door, checking them in. They had a computer there helping the kids find their schedule. They had students accompanying the ninth graders and new students to their home rooms and working with them throughout the rest of the day. It was a really neat opportunity to watch that, to see students helping other students, being the representatives as they are the ambassadors of our school community. So much kudos to them. I mentioned it briefly. We started a series. It's an outgrowth of our parent engagement. If we posted in a newsletter, albeit somewhat late, we didn't get the turnout we expected for the first one, but we will do a better job of communicating and promoting. It's a series of sessions that parents may want to know more about high school operation and programming, and we'll have individuals who are most closely connected to those programs featured on a Google Meet. And like I said, the first one, well, we had some attendance. But it was an opportunity to really see how they would go for the rest. And it was very informal, conversational. It was a really good program. And then just to put on here, we do have a back to school night on September 9th, and just wanted to promote that as well.
Okay, wait, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The iConnect programs, are those recorded so families can?
No, but they will be. Yeah, they will be. That's a good idea.
And then maybe with like if they have questions that didn't get answered or as a result of who they would contact, that might be, because there will be a different person for each topic, I would imagine.
Yes, there will be some individuals will be similar. For instance, Doug and I will be on there, probably Donnie Bowers, Dean of Students. But you're right, there will be different individuals. We'll try to manage it the same way. We got a chat, someone to watch the chat, answer those questions, someone to have live interaction. But I think recording will be very helpful.
Yeah, and then if you just had a screen, like if you're watching the recording and you have questions, here's who you would contact. Because they won't have that chat option. I'm just thinking 7 to 8, you know, if you work in Pittsburgh, you're not going to be there by 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out, do we do it earlier, but then it cuts into people's dinner time. We do it a little
If
later.
it has activities, you might not be able to do it, but you can
Yeah.
watch it, so.
Yeah. Good idea.
Ms. Savagian?
Hi, everybody. So we're beginning our first days at Horace Mann to really focus on positive behavior interventions and supports for Pbis. And we're even teaching like what it's like to sit at a table at the cafeteria, and I get to be in there to help them learn that. We play music and have fun together, and just really focus on RCR, which are our 3 shared agreements or rules, which is respect, compassion, responsibility, and we have the shared agreements between the 2 schools. The other piece is we're looking forward to our back to school night, where we're re-envisioning to like really have an interactive time with our parents to teach them how to actually get onto Power School together in 4th grade instead of waiting until 9th grade and figuring out, or 7th or 8th, but just figuring it out earlier. And also teaching our students how to have that capacity and be empowered. So they're learning that together. And we're doing that at this time to just make it a more interactive time to bring them in and also make them a part of the early learning, but it won't be over there. We'll just be starting. And that's about it. It's just all really about being there for our community right now as we get started.
Thank you. Ms. Eisenman?
Thank you. We welcomed our Eisenhower students to the junior high today, and we had a pretty good first day, so we're looking forward to many more good days. Thank you again to Dr. Minnick and Mr. Edmondson for all their hospitality and their help as we've gone through this process. And the other thing that we're really excited about is that this year, as part of the IUP Fulbright Scholar Program, we have 4 primary teachers coming that will be working with 4 of our teachers. So our students will get to be able to explore cultures and have cultural lessons, and we are going to be able to walk them, hopefully walking. We're hoping the weather will permit, up to the senior high for the cultural fair as well in October. So we're very excited about this new initiative that Eisenhower is going to take part in.
Thank you, Ms. Eisenman. Mr. Banning?
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry for my delay in getting this on the agenda, but I made it just in time. I just wanted to let you know that we're also very excited for back to school night on September 1st. That's Wednesday. We split our families in half alphabetically so that we're going to try to stay a little bit safer. And our theme is Ben Franklin, a School of Smart Cookies. We're going to have a Meet the Teacher session and then move into a curriculum fair where teachers will be presenting what we do with their children every day, and parents can ask questions. We're going to be modeling some of the activities that we do, again, in falling in line with the APTT model. I think that this is an appropriate time to also just give a brief update about our outdoor learning space. Learning is not happening yet because we were able to order all the materials in July. Unfortunately, there's a major delay in supplies, and so building has not yet started. But as soon as everything comes in, we will be ready to start the pavilion, and that's exciting. And then one more thing that I wanted to share is that Ben Franklin recently was awarded the Adopt a Classroom grant through Subaru Delaney. It's local, and we had some very excited teachers. They actually thought that it was a joke when they got the email that they could spend $500 on their classrooms for the grade level teams. And it's been just a great honor, and we're very, very grateful for the community support. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Dr. Minnick?
Thanks, Mike. I'll keep it short. We had a really good forecast for today. With last week's sneak peek, we had a great turnout, and it was a forecast for what a wonderful first day it was. It was extremely busy with some guests Mike arranged to come through the school. U.S. Congressman Glenn Thompson came through the school along with a group of folks to see some of the highlights within the school building. Our kids were just full of joy and excitement about being back. It was great to see a full school in operation again. And I want to thank you for that opportunity. I thought today was a wonderful first day. Also, we have our back to school night, September 8th. So we're looking forward to programs like that to continue to build our connection with the community and communicate all the wonderful things that are happening at the school. And I just want to thank you for that opportunity. I thought today was a great first day.
Thank you, Dr. Minnick. At this time, Mr. Hart, I think we can conclude tonight's meeting. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, sir.